young brother was downright eloquent with his misinformed soliloquy. He said using nigger affectionately among ourselves takes the negativity out of the word, but that no other race of people can use it ever but us. And you thought that kind of reasoning existed only in the Twilight Zone. Then again, the Twilight Zone was a TV show, and the plight of black America is tragic reality. Somebody said the revolution would not be televised. They didn't say anything about our devolution, which is well documented. You see it every day, our disrespect for one another. You can hear it in our sad excuse for artistry. We continue to squander our brilliant cultural legacy as musicians, poets, educators, and inventors. We call our women bitches and hoes. In a vivid exhibition of self-repulsion, we refer to ourselves as niggas. In our quest for acceptance and our relentless worship of bling, we have shed our sense of dignity and self-worth. It didn't used to be this way. Ironically, back when we fought for the opportunities we now abuse, that is when we stood tallest. Out of our torturous struggle for equality morphed a mighty pride and honor.
Slaves to our freedom.
But now our pride is built on hollow motives and aimless ambitions. Today, to identify our oppressor, the modern black American need look no further than his own mirror. All of us aren't lost. Many of us know damn well that the emperor is butt naked. Every day we fight the good fight. But high praise for low thinking has taken its toll on generations. When so many are lost, there is enough blame to go around. When Martin Luther King Jr. prophesied the black man one day reaching the so-called promised land, he said, "I might not get there with you." Lord knows, he didn't think we'd end up here.
Slave to our freedom.
We have today's subject. Islam, ye are the children of one Father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother has given ye suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brother, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thine own blood. If thy brother's in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. At this time, I recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which we draw our strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First off, I like to rise, walking in Jerusalem, just like John, giving praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. I would like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I would like to give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali because it was he who reached down into the watery grave of Negro, colored, black, and Ethiopian and set you and me back upright on our feet again. I'd like to give honor to the forerunner to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Mosai Garvey. I'd like to give honor to Marcus Mosai Garvey because this brother had to have pure thoughts in order to pave the way for love. I'd like to give honor to our two flags, the flag of our origin and the flag of our birth. And honor to our charter, honor to all literature pertaining to Islam in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to Moors here, there, and everywhere. Moreover, I'd like to give honor to the special ones here in Portland, Oregon, Temple 2, for their wills and their ways. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals, that none was able to open and read from its sacred pages the messages of purity and love. You know, the book tells you that Jesus was teaching at 12 years old. And you didn't hear no more of him again until he was 30. And where are those 18 years that's missing in your Holy Bible in the book of the seven seals? Now, we're going to talk about the book of the seven seals because a lot of people talk about it, they can't. I just like Bruce Lee. If it came to talking about the heritages of his people, let him talk about that. And I talked to the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. There was a girl, before I read this, whose name was Nikki Giovanni. Nikki Giovanni was a poet back in the day when I was coming up. Wore a fro just like Angela Davis. And she made a statement one time. She said, I'm studying history. And in this history, they talk about the Moors. Are the Moors extinct now? Are the Moors like dinosaurs now? No. Truth don't change. The Moors today are calling themselves Negro, colored, and black, letting you know the wrong time been declared out, because Drew Ali told us in 1913 that we were Negro, colored, black, or Ethiopian. So I want to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, chapter 45. It's imperative that I read from this because I've been hearing a lot of rhetoric all weekend about certain situations. And I want to read from chapter 45. Nowhere else in the world they talk about the Quorum Gospel and they talk about Unto Thee I Grant. They talk about these two books. But this lesson that I'm just getting ready to read, you will not find it in neither of those books. The only way you'll find it is you come to the Moorish Science Temple of America, because no leader talked about this, what I'm getting ready to read, but Noble Drew Ali, the last prophet in these days and time. And it's read on this wise. Chapter 45. The divine origin of the Asiatic nations. Now I'm going to read this, and I read it, I want you to, when the chairman come on later on, you're going to see him with an elephant on. And when you looking at my ring or this right here, I got an elephant on too. Because Drew Ali told the Moors are just like the elephant, who never forget. So we're not going to forget this because Drew Ali told it to us. And it seemed like that a lot of us have forgotten. And it reads on this wise. The divine origin of the Asiatic nation. The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nations of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know of their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for the teaching and the instructing of all Moorish Americans, etc. The key of civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations, the Moorish, who were the ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. The Egyptians, who were the Hammatites and a direct descendant of Mizraim. The Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese, and Chinese. Now, let me stop right here on verse 3. Because it said the Egyptians who were the Hammatites. Now, Africa is the cradle of civilization. Jesus had to flee to Egypt land. Don't tell me he didn't teach nowhere. Jesus had to flee to Egypt land, and while in Egypt, he was teaching. Because Harold wanted to kill all the babies that was 2 and under. So Jesus was in Egypt land. Egypt and Africa are one. And when you begin to talk about the Egyptians who were the Hammatites and a direct descendant of Mizraim, Ham had 4 sons. Cush, Put, Mizraim, and Canaan. So we're teaching some things here. And the thing that we are teaching, you never hear it nowhere else other than in the Moorish Science Temple of America, because can't nobody else teach it. And for this cause, a lot of people got paid off not to teach this. So it says the Egyptians, who were the Hammatites and a direct descendant of Mizraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese, and Chinese, the Hindus of India, descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan. The Asiatic nations and countries in North, South, and Central America, Moorish Americans, and Mexicans in Central America, etc. All of these are Muslim. And then he said the Mexican and North America, then he said the Brazilians. He said the Brazilians, he talked about the Argentinians, Colombians, Nicaraguans, but he spoke about the Brazilians in here. And when you begin to understand your lessons, because Drew Ali told us that Negro is a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water. Now, where is that Negro river today? He said right here, the Brazilians. That river today is in Brazil. So Brazil is a part of West Africa. But through the Berlin Conference, things was changed, and we're going to try to clear some of this foolishness up today because Drew Ali told us that. The title of our chapter today is Drew Ali told us that some of his greatest followers are in the church. Now, that don't mean that you're in the Moorish Science Temple. I just said this for the show star. You're in the Moorish Science Temple, and you get the Holy Ghost, and you want to go in the church and start jumping up and shouting. That don't mean that. See, because Drew Ali told us that the foundation of Christianity began in Rome. And it was the Roman nation that founded the first church, of whom crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. So when he said that some of his greatest followers are in the church, we talking about your great-great-grandmother and your grandmother. I can't say your mother, and I can't say your grandmother today, because the grandmothers and the mothers is wearing their dresses high up by their butt than the babies are. So I say your great-grandmother and your grandmother who was living according to the word of God. This is who Drew Ali was talking about. And if that's the case, we got to go get them. And we got to go get them through the teachings of the prophet. Now, before I get into this subject matter, today I had a blessing. I was with Bruce Bashar, who's running for office. And we went to a church called Vancouver Avenue Baptist Church. And I've been trying to get in Vancouver's Baptist Church for the longest, because this was the church where Martin Luther King came to Portland, Oregon for the first time. This is the church on whom he came to. And then I'm talking to the brothers in the church this morning. They was telling me that my uncle and my grandfather and my uncle, they was on security when Martin Luther King came. So I was honored to hear that. But now I met a brother who was a reverend, and he was at the church. And his name is Reverend Robert F. Kemp. And I mentioned it to our chairman today. He said he should be my mother's preacher. But this was a brother that was in Vietnam in 2nd of the 50 Deuce B Company. And I was right there with him. I was right there in A Company in 2nd of the 50 Deuce in Vietnam. So then we met a lot of other brothers. So another brother that we met was the name of Mark E. Hardy. And when I met Mark E. Hardy, he said, hey, brother, my father had one of them hats on like you have on. I said, it's not a hat, brother. It's a fez. He said, I know. He said, but I have a couple of colors. And I said, well, your father, might not have had one like mine. I said, he might have been a mason or he might have been a shriner. He said, oh, but I know you. You are more. I said, praise Allah. So he said he want to learn about Juali. He want to learn about Juali because he heard about nationality, and this is something that the children learn. And Bruce overheard it, and Bruce said, yeah, I seen a brother out of California talking about the Moors and the land that they have. So Juali's work is in full manifest. We think that Rome is in control. Rome is not in control. But when I went into church today, it was a brother that passed form here in Portland. His name was Jerry Murray. He was a Marine that got 2 silver stars. And I seen the casket, the blue casket, and I looked at the pallbearers. And who do I see? One of those Ritchie brothers, Melvin Ritchie. The brother was born the same year and the same month that I was. I seen him as a pallbearer. I seen some brothers and sisters in the church that I deal with in the community daily, not knowing that they was members of the church, but we had a great opportunity to see each other in that house. And I was honored because Drew Ali said, when a Moor step into a church, that church becomes a temple. So I want to give honor to these brothers that I was able to meet at the church today, and we'll get back because Drew Ali say, in my father's house are many mansions. See, that's the 14th chapter of St. John. And say, if it was not so, I would have told you. So now I want to talk about my subject matter. Now, the subject matter is some of our greatest followers are in the church. And I come to find out that brothers and sisters that go to church, in the church, they teach about not smoking, not drinking, not cussing. And then you can go to other sets and they'll talk about the same thing, but from a weak perspective. So when Drew Ali says some of his greatest followers are in the church, they need a nationality. And we have to go give them that nationality. Now I want to read from the Bible. I want to read from the Bible again because this is very important, because Drew Ali told the Moorish Americans in our 101 questions. See, in question 44, it said, where did he teach? Talking about Jesus. And it said Jesus taught in India, Africa, and Europe. And our brothers and sisters need to learn this because they're into Jesus. And they love Jesus. And Jesus is a descendant of them. When you talk about the house of David, you're talking about a providence. But when you talk about the house of David, moreover, you're talking about a bloodline. And now on your nationality card, it talks about birthright. Who in the history of mankind lost the birthright other than you and me? So here we go again in Genesis. In Genesis chapter 5, verse 32. We talked about this in Sunday school. It talks about Noah was 500 years old. 5 is justice. 5 is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And Noah's 3 sons were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But Drew Ali said something different over here about the Hamathites. He told us something different right here. So now how did Shem become the oldest son? If Africa, the cradle of civilization, everybody to go to church. You know that when they talk about Abraham, they're talking about you and me. Now the bad part about it is Abraham had a nephew. And another way that they tried to destroy the lineage of you and me, they said Lot had 2 daughters. And they say the way that Lot's 2 daughters came about was through incest. They said Lot went into his 2 daughters and impregnated them, and this is how Moab came about. But Drew Ali told us something different. Drew Ali said that Lot was a righteous man. Lot was leading the people out of Sodom and Gomorrah. Because when you begin to talk about Sodom and Gomorrah, you talking about sodomy, you talking about sodomite, And you're talking about homosexuality. So Lot could not have been that kind of brother. He was of the spirit. So when he impregnated his 2 daughters, he impregnated them upon the impregnum of doctrine, built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And Lot went into his 2 daughters with the truth. And this is what I'm doing to our Portland listening audience today. I'm going into you with the truth, telling you that James Stewart. I want to reiterate this because of something that one of them chumps was saying on Facebook. When you begin to talk about your forefathers, when you begin to talk about your foremothers, there's a genealogy. And Drew Ali says some of the great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary. Brother Lynch-Bey passed the other day, and he prayed the prayer of Hezekiah for a lot of years. But Allah say, come on with me, man, on this spiritual plane, because I got some other things for you to do. So you have to look at this. You have to understand this book. Just like in Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. Before the Sheiks took us into the Bible, they say, look at Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. They talk about the giants. And he said, I remember President Hoover seen a little brother laying on the back of the truck. And he said, when that sleeping giant wake up, we're going to be in trouble. I see the sleeping giant again in chapter 6, verse 4. So I'm coming back. I'm going to let this giant come up here right now to tell you some things. We got a giant that's here in Portland, Oregon, and we get ready to take off. It's longer than we thought it was, but we get ready to take off, and he's going to tell you about that. We get ready to take off and do some work because Allah alone is guiding the destiny of this divine and national movement, not man. And everybody want to put yourself up so high and have murder and try to outdo. We used to remember when the brothers and sisters used to try to outdo each other. But we try to outdo each other in righteousness. And the way you do it in righteousness is try to live and pass those same 7 tests that Jesus passed. Because Jesus means justice. And justice is dealing upright, equal, and fair. So right now we have a brother going to deal upright, equal, and fair with you. So I want you to sit back and listen to him because he's going to tell you something about the Last Supper. Without further ado, we'll call our chairman, Brother A. Boston.
Yeah, praise a lot. Islam, and I want to first begin off and say it's a blessing to be back. Thank Almighty God Allah for his grace and his extended mercy, undeserved mercy. And want to reiterate the praises and honors that the Sheikh gave when he opened up the show. And was sitting here listening to what the Sheikh was talking about, and want to try to share a little bit of food for thought with you tonight in regards to this book. First of all, I want to say that I had a chance to speak with Brother Sahu and Brother Nehaz. These brothers are in Florida, in a Florida institution, and I got a chance to speak with them today extensively about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali and about the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And these young brothers is hungry, and they're ready to claim their nationality. I believe a couple of them have already done it, but we're going to make sure that gets done. But I want to say it's a pleasure to be back in front of our Portland listening audience tonight. And I hope the words that I speak have some type of effect, and that it doesn't go unheard or unnoticed. The chapter that the Sheikh came from today was chapter 45. He talked about the divine origins of the Asiatic nations, which is in our Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Temple of America. And then he got to one part, he says, this is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans. And there's a lot of people that don't understand how Prophet Noble Drew Ali got Islam legally established here in the United States when he arrived on the scene. And the Prophet Noble Ali had to use the Holy Quran of Mecca to get Islam legally established in America. And the Moorish Science Temple of America is the oldest Islamic organization in the United States of America today. We are at 105 years of being the longest Islamic organization in America. And when it says that the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca, and it was Prophet Noble Ali who used the Holy Quran of Mecca, and peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad, who a lot of people don't really understand about a seal. Now, if somebody put a seal on something, that means that that particular thing has their approval. And, you know, for a lot of years, I've heard that, you know, Muhammad is the seal of the prophets and everything like that. But I want to tell you something about Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. And these prophets, these true and divine prophets of Allah, and, you know, and there's many, many more. But Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, and finally Noble Ali taught universal lessons. So these are universal prophets because each one of these prophets came to all the nations. You see, and so you have to understand the conditions and situations that were going on in these times and climes when these prophets were divinely prepared and sent by the great God Allah. And the Sheikh had mentioned earlier about Jesus teaching in India, Africa, and Europe. At question 44, it says, where did he teach? India, Africa, and Europe. And, you know, Jesus really started teaching when, I'm pretty sure y'all heard the story in Matthew where it talks about Jesus going to Egypt. As a matter of fact, it said that the angel Gabriel had come to Joseph in a dream and told him to take Mary, his wife, and their young son Jesus and flee into Egypt because King Herod was trying to kill him. Now, if you know the story, if you read the story, because this is going to make it so plain and so simple for you. If you go in your Holy Bible and you look and you read in Matthew about King Herod, I believe it's in chapter 2 of the Gospel of Matthew. But then also, if you look back when Moses was sent to the Hebrews at that time, was the Pharaoh had issued the same decree that was issued when Jesus was born. And it, you know, you'll notice the similarities because Moses was 2 years old when he was put in the basket and put in the Nile River and was discovered by the Pharaoh's daughter, you know. But the Pharaoh's daughter was not the one that raised him, you know. Moses was raised and everything by his own mother, who, you know, got that situation brought about by her daughter and everything. So these two similarities, you have the Genesis story where Moses is 2 years old and the Pharaoh sends out this decree to have all the male children 2 years and under slain. And then this same situation took place in the Gospel of Matthew when King Herod issued that same decree in Jesus' time. Now, I want to ask you a question. I want you to really, really think hard about this question because it's just going to take common sense. Okay, so the angel Gabriel comes to Joseph in a dream. He tells him to take Mary, his wife, and the young child Jesus and flee into Egypt. Now, like the Sheikh said earlier, Egypt and Africa are one and the same. they're not too different. It's not different. Egypt is the capital empire of the dominion of Africa, is what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali teaches us in the Moorish Holy Quran. So then if just say, for instance, hypothetically, that Jesus is European, Joseph is European, Mary is European, but they are sent into Egypt with the population being of darker hue. Now, wouldn't they stand out? If Jesus was European, Mary and Joseph was European, and they were sent into Egypt to hide from Pharaoh, wouldn't it make sense that why would God send a family into a place where they would stick out like a sore thumb? So that's just something to think about. Just something to think about right there. But I want to take a reading tonight from the Moorish Holy Quran. And this is chapter 13. And this is the life and works of Jesus in Egypt among the Gentiles. And these are the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. And I'm going to begin my reading at verse 1. It says, Jesus with Elihu and Salome in Egypt tells the story of his journeys. Elihu and Salome praise Allah. Jesus goes to the temple in Heliopolis and is received as a pupil. And Jesus came to Egypt land, and all was well. He tarried not upon the coast. He went at once to Zoan, home of Elihu and Salome, who 25 years before had taught his mother in their sacred school. And there was joy when met these three. When last the son of Mary saw these sacred groves, he was a babe. And now a man grown strong by buffeting of every kind, a teacher who has stirred the multitudes in many lands. And Jesus told the aged teachers all about his life, about his journeys in foreign lands, about the meetings with the masters, and his kind receptions by the multitudes. Elihu and Salome heard his story with delight. They lifted up their eyes to heaven and said, Our Father God Allah, let now thy servants go in peace, for we have seen the glory of Allah, and we have talked with him, the messenger of love and of the covenant of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Through him shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, through him Emmanuel. And Jesus stayed in Zoan many days, and then went forth into the city of the sun that men call Heliopolis, and sought admission to the temple of the sacred brotherhood. Now the council of the brotherhood convened, and Jesus stood before the Hierophant. He answered all questions that were asked with clearness and with power. The Hierophant exclaimed, Rabboni of the Rabbinet, why come you here? Your wisdom is the wisdom of the gods. Why seek for wisdom in the halls of men? And Jesus said, in every way of life I would walk, in every hall of learning I would sit. The heights that any man has gained, these I would gain. What any man has suffered I would meet, that I may know the griefs, the disappointments, and the sore temptations of my brother man, that I may know just how to secure those in need. I pray you, brothers, let me go into your dismal crypts, and I will pass the hardest of your tests. The master said, then take the vow of the secret brotherhood, and Jesus took the vow of the secret brotherhood. Again, the master spoke. He said, the highest heights are gained by those who reach the greatest depths, and you shall reach the greatest depths. The guide then led the way, and in the fountain Jesus bathed, and when he had been clothed in proper garb, he stood again before the Hierophant. And I just took a reading from chapter 13 out of our Moorish Holy Quran, and these were the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Now I want to get back to something that that the Sheikh was teaching in our class on Friday. And he asked a question, the first question that he asked, he says, what is your nationality? Now, according to the Prophet's literature, the Quran questionnaire, it says Moorish American. Okay. And then he goes down and says, why? The second question was, why are we Moorish Americans? And that answer to that question was, because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. And then question 3 was, who are these Moroccans? And so we had a really beautiful discussion on that, and the Sheikh was quizzing us on what we knew, so he knows where each member is along the way. And the question 4 was, they are, and there's a question mark. So who are these Moroccans? And according to our divine constitution and bylaw, Act 6, it says that these ancient Moabites are the descendants. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern, southwestern shores of Africa. So that's who these Moroccans are. These Moroccans are the ancient Moabites. They're the biblical sons of Ham. And they are the biblical sons of Ham by way of Lot. And the Sheikh was just talking about Lot when he opened the show. And talking about the situation where it said that Lot went into his daughters and committed incest with his daughters in order for the two tribes, the Moabites and the Ammonites, to come about. But as the Sheikh was also saying, that Lot was a righteous man. And the city of Sodom and Gomorrah was full of depravity, and it was the men in that location that were practiced, homosexuality was being practiced among the people. And even if you go back and read the story for yourself, it'll tell you that these men were so depraved that they were even trying to go into the angels that had came through Sodom and Gomorrah to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. They were sent by the great God Allah to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because of the depravity that was going on in the cities at that time. And so when you say that he went into his daughters, it doesn't mean sexually, because the Prophet Noble Ali teaches us in the Moorish Holy Quran, about the seed. The seed is perfect from the source from which it came, and everything like that. So we have to prepare our brothers and sisters early with instruction and give them the maxims of truth. Now, before I turn the show back over to the Sheikh, I want to say one more thing, and it has to do with this question here. And it says, there's a question in the Quran questionnaire that says, what is the modern name for Moabites? And the modern name for Moabites is Moroccan. So why are we not Moroccan American as opposed to being Moorish American? So we'll talk about that on another show. But I wanted to say about the Prophet Noble Ali getting Islam legally established in his government, because if we have a Moorish Holy Quran, if you go to page 3 under Know Thyself and Thy Father God Allah, and I'm not going to read this in its entirety, but I'm going to read this last paragraph right here. And it says, the lessons of this pamphlet are not for sale, but for the sake of humanity. As I am a prophet and the servant is worthy of his hire, you can receive this pamphlet at expense. The reason these lessons have not been known is because the Muslims of India, Egypt, and Palestine had these secrets and kept them back from the outside world. And when the time appointed by Allah, they loosened the keys and freed these secrets. And for the first time in ages have these secrets been delivered in the hands of the Muslims of America, all authority and rights of publishing of this pamphlet of 1927. So you're talking about the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca and the Moorish Holy Quran. When the Prophet Noble Ali arrived on the scene in 1913 AD, he established Islam in America with the Holy Quran of Mecca, and then this pamphlet here was copyrighted and published in 1927. So that is it for my portion today. I want to thank our poorly listening audience again. If you wish to come visit with us on Friday, we meet at Matt Dishman, room class 1A. We start at 6 o'clock. and we go to about 7:30, 7:45. So if you want to come on out and get some more of this knowledge about your nationality, that divine creed and birthrights, the doors are always open. And with that, I'm going to turn the show back over to the Sheik. May Allah continue to bless you all. Peace.
Islam. Praise Allah,
Praise
Brother Chairman.
Praise Allah, Sheik.
I really enjoyed that. Gave me time to be able to sit back and listen to the chairman. You know, the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who was the last prophet in these days and time. Allah ain't going to send 3. He ain't going to send 4. He ain't going to send 2. He ain't going to send 1. Whenever a nation is in need for a prophet, Allah will send 1, not 2 or 3. Now, Drew Ali came in a meeting one time. Man, it was packed. You know, who was on the front row? The Japanese and the Chinese. Because when the prophet was coming to the temple, you know, the brothers and sisters was doing like you do when you go to a party. You come in last because you want everybody to see your new outfit. So the Chinese was always on the front row. They was the first ones in line because they knew that he was the last prophet in these days and time. But Noble Drew Ali asked a question in the meeting. He said, what are you people doing here? He asked the question, he said, what are you doing here? Because only a few of you going to be saved. And I can count it on one hand. And what made him say that is Drew Ali had 15 temples. Drew Ali, the last prophet of these days, started out with 15 temples. People keep asking a lot of questions, where are those 15 temples? Where was Noble Drew Ali's wife at when she got buried? Where was the Lynch-Bey brothers, a lot of other people, even them? Where was they at when, what body was they with? But Drew Ali told us something. And he told us something, and we got to listen to it because I mentioned these 15 temples. Noble Drew Ali went out to 15 temples. And when he went through those 15 temples, he sat with the grand sheik of each one of those temples and the governing body. He listened to them, watched them, and watched the temple, smelt the breath, looked at the folds that they had. One temple he went to, he seen cigarette butts on the floor. They were sheiks. He seen a lot of other different things. Then he went to another temple. He seen them in there practicing Buddha. They was fasting. You know, they was not using profane language in the mildest form. So when Noble Drew Ali went through his 15 temples, he didn't give all the temples the same lesson. He gave you according to your understanding, according to your cubics high. Like it said in talking about Noah's Ark, it's talking about many cubics high, your level of consciousness. That's how he gave you certain things. So just because the brother, just like I met a brother a year ago, he didn't know the Moorish American prayer, he see me now, I am a sheik now. Sheik of what? What you done? What kind of lesson you been through? What kind of tests have you overcome? Because Drew Ali is telling us that Jesus went through 7 tests. And he went through these 7 tests, and after he conquered these 7 tests, then he became the Christ. See, Jesus wasn't always the Christ, just like Barack Obama was not always president. Christ is a title. And what we don't realize, the Christ title is the Christ of sheikdom. And when you become a sheik, you really saying that your earth tasks are done. You say that the thing that you used to do in this world, you don't do no more. The friends you used to have, you don't have no more. The places you used to go, you don't have to go no more because there's been a break change since you've been born. Being born again means changing your thought pattern. So that's why Noble Drew Ali came. So now you hear a lot of people say that Jesus was a European. That's what they want you to say. When a brother who's supposed to be a scholar and well-learned tell me that Jesus was a European, and then the bad part about you got 100,000 followers, and your followers are sitting up there supposed to be PhDs and master's degrees, and when you say that, they're going to say, yeah, agreeing with everything that you have to say. You know who that is? That is the mental slavery anyway that you now have. Because I posted today, when you begin to talk about scot-free, Scott never did get free, Dred Scott, because he never proclaimed his nationality. So Drew Ali tell the Moors, see, when you begin to study these 7 tests, see, when you study these 7 tests, that means that you're overcoming. You're doing like Jacob and climbing the ladder, because every time you overcome a foe, you rise higher into the spirit. So to get back with the great God Allah, you got to let the things of this earth go. The things down here on this earth, you got to let go. Just like I heard him talking about Moses. He was talking about Moses. You know, Moses went up in Sinai and wrote the law. And when he went up there and wrote the law, when he went up there, everybody was acting like they were religious. And when he went up there, man, they was dancing, drinking, doing everything, worshiping the golden calf. What is the golden calf? The golden calf is hate, slander, looters, murder, theft, and everything that harms. The golden calf is things down here on this plane of things made manifest. But this is the third plane. And this plane down here, we got to make heaven on earth down here. Just like Drew Ali said, many ages man would turn until all his lessons are learned. Don't think that you're going to get on the plane of soul or the spirit plane. You're going to have to come back down here to complete this work. And the way that you complete this work is through the teachings of Drew Ali. Noble Drew Ali brought us two things that we needed to hook us back up with the family of nations and the spirit. This is why they say Ruth. Husband died because the man had died. And when Ruth married Boaz, the union came back with David, Solomon, Jesse, and etc., putting us back in line with the spirit. So this is what Drew Ali was telling us. That's why when he went through those 15 temples, he didn't give all of them the same thing. Drew Ali knew. He knew who was coming the back door. Because he say that you can count the ones that's going to be saved on one finger and still have, on one hand, and still have fingers left over. So you say you want to be close to God. You say that you the one that got all the signs. What are you walking? How are you walking? Are you walking with the prophet? Are you letting the prophet lead you? You know, I say, lead me, guide me along the way. Let Drew Ali lead you and guide you. Because, see, recently, you start seeing ankhs and things in the Moorish Science Temple. I remember a brother by the name of Lynch-Bey out of Washington, D.C., a sheik, Temple 71. And he passed form. And when he passed form, Loveville wrote me a letter and said, Lynch-Bey, only wear what the prophet gave us. See, now, we talk about the ankh in the chamber. We talk about a lot of other different things in the chamber. But Noble Drew Ali brought us something to wear. He brought us the 7. He brought us the 7. He brought us 2 flags and a star and a crescent. Anything other than that, Noble Drew Ali didn't bring it. You hear Egypt and you just want to jump on what you want to jump on when 7 is the number of perfected man. And we are striving to reach perfection. And you do that by experience. So what you have to do is overcome. Give back to Caesar what belonged to Caesar. I'm not going to do it, though. I'm not going to give back to Caesar what belonged to Caesar. No sooner as I get this paycheck, I'm going to Las Vegas. And when I get to Las Vegas, I'm going to Caesar's palace. I don't know what Drew Ali talking about give back to Caesar, because I'm going to Caesar's palace and give him some of this money. I'm going to give it to you. Now, we say that the foundation of Christianity began in Rome. And we say it was the Roman nation that founded the first church, of whom crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. So now when you say the foundation of Christianity began in Rome, who are the Romans? The Romans are the Italians. The same one that knock you and me off when they want them. The same one that crucified Jesus. These are they who buried Jesus in Vatican Square, took on their name. That's why it began in Rome. It was the Roman nation that founded the first church. So each of these Roman nations have a history within themselves, and we try to be a part of it. That's why Drew Ali said don't mix the blood. Because if we talk about mixing the blood, then we'll never come out of this mess that we are in. So we got to learn to love instead of hate. Love who? Love yourself. Love who your forefathers are and were. Because what it is right now, like a brother. Well, I got to say it because he married to a European girl. And he's talking about the girl that's a commissioner. That's a commissioner right now in Portland that's an Asiatic. And he was talking on Bruce Bashard's show today and called the sister B. But you married to a big fat European. If you don't like it, don't make no difference. You can see me whenever. But I'm saying you talking about your own, and that's what you did. Same guy was on the show talking about the little gang members. And when he talks about, boy, this brother's bad. But when I seen him walk out, I seen him walk with somebody else. So we got to learn ourselves. Drew Ali say, know thyself. That's why I just heard the chairman. He said, what is your nationality? Moorish American. Why are we Moorish American? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Who are these Moroccans? They are descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabit the northwestern, southwestern shore of Africa. Now, who are these Moroccans? They are the biblical sons and daughters of Ham, one of the three sons of Noah, according to the biblical scriptures. This is why we are Hamitic by descent nature, by the way of life. We was taught that. Out of all the sheiks I met, all across the country, other than those that was in the chamber when I learned that, it was only one brother. He's out of Baltimore. Only one brother that told me about Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Because you listen to your sheik, your grand sheik, and he tell you Shem, Ham, and Japheth. He don't know his lessons, or he working with the government. See, because we keep talking about all these brothers and sisters supposed to be scholars. But you go to church, never will you hear in church they tell you about Noah's three sons. They got a lesson for you, tell you to be good and walk with God and try to learn God. But you need to know this. They talking about the 13 and 1320, but they don't talk about this one. They don't talk about this biblical. And if you look all across the country, this is what our people need to know. They need to know their genealogy, the genealogy from which they come, because we don't know. And you see Shem right there. You see Shem. But the book tells you that after the cradle of civilization, you know that you come from Ham. You know about Lot nephew. Drew Ali tell you about your genealogy, and you still saying that Noah's three sons were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So you working with James Stewart too. Because James Stewart changed. Now, who is James Stewart? James Stewart is King James. Whenever we read a book, the first thing we do is look at the author. You reading the book, you reading this version, and you reading that version, and you don't even realize that he took your book. He took your book, buried it in Vatican Square, changed it around, and fit him. Drew Ali said, we got to use this book here. We got to use this book to condemn the government. Just like I say, James Stewart, he meant to take it out when he said that the 7 churches that was in Asia, not Europe, because Europe was not even in existence. They took everything from us. Now they done took our genealogy with this book. You know how they say? They always say that if you want to hide a secret, where do you put? Put it in the book. Brother, they talking about this book. Because this is the best, most sold book in America. They talking about the Bible. So in this book is the history of somebody other than you. So I wanted to talk about this again because when you, my Christian friends, are in Sunday school, ask your preacher to go into Ham's or Noah's 3 sons. And let's get some understanding of this because Africa's supposed to be the cradle of civilization. Africa being the cradle of civilization, however, you got Shem as the oldest son and not Ham. And then we done taught here many creations about Ham, Shem, and Japheth, Noah's son. We talked about chapter 17 when Jesus went into Europe and was teaching Claudia and Juliet, of whom he made his ambassadors to Rome, and they become of that spirit because everybody that you see is Asiatic. The whole world is Asia. See, ain't but one race. And this one race is the human race. But this human race now is subdivided into 2 formulations for identification purposes only, Asiatic and European. And a lot of brothers I know, even some are sheiks, they know these lessons, but they come home, don't have nowhere to go, and they get one of these girls that's over there in the church. And she get him in the church when he know about these lessons, but he don't have nowhere to go, gonna be in the street, and he'll take on that. And then you're an enemy to the cause of uplifting your own people. Because if you tell our people that they black, that they Negro, that they colored, that they Christian, because the foundation of Christianity began in Rome, and it was Roman nation found the first church of whom crucified Jesus, then you are a slave to sin. You are working with the government. And back then it was $100,000 that you got a month. You're getting $1 million now. See? You're getting $1 million now. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to get off this television because I want to hear Mo sing. Mo always loved to sing, so it's always an honor to be able to come before our Portland listening audience and talk to you about the last prophet in these days and time, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and about the 18 years that's missing in our Holy Bible. So in conclusion, I would like to recite the Morse Markham prayer because this is the source from which we draw our strength and then I call our chairman. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen.
Who were those Muslims all dressed in white? Drew Ali done troubled the water. Well, it must be the Muslims of the Moabites. Drew Ali done troubled the water. I'm singing, wade in the water. Wade in the water, Muslims, wade in the water. Drew Ali done troubled the water. Well, who were those Muslims all dressed in green? Drew Ali done troubled the water. Well, it must be the Muslim that Drew Ali redeemed. Drew Ali done troubled the water. I'm singing, wade in the water. Wade in the water, Muslims, wade in the water. Drew Ali done
The citizens of all three national governments, according to their national constitution, were all of one family, bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classified as undesirables and are subjugated to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. We are returning the church and Christianity